Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Capacity TV. My name is Natalie Bannerman, and I am Deputy Editor at Capacity Media. So we are here at Capacity Europe 2023, and I'm delighted to be joined by Michael Wheeler, who is the Executive Vice President of Global IP Network at NTT. Michael, thanks for joining me again.
It's good to see you.
Absolutely. So I have a long list of questions for you, and we're going to dive right in. And the first one is actually about the news that we've covered over at Capacity, and that is the new points of presence in your global IP network in Denver and Phoenix. So talk to me about those and the reasons for those expansions.
Yeah, so they're about ready to go live in production. They're just finishing up the last kind of equipment deployment and stuff. So probably in the next 30 to 45 days, we'll see them go live. And Denver and Phoenix have been markets we've looked at for a number of years. And, we ultimately always will build a business case, make sure that there's the opportunity in the market, the demand from customers, but also the financial structure that makes sense for us to continue to have a profitable and kind of successful business. So we always, have that approach and that kind of blueprint that we follow. And we were able to kind of bring all those pieces together at the beginning of our fiscal year, so about 6 months ago, and include these builds in that plan. And so we're just kind of executing on that plan. And we look at different markets through the course of the year. We don't have to do it at the beginning of a fiscal year necessarily. It's something we can do ad hoc, and we kind of regularly have a team that goes through and does that in a process. And so all the pieces came together correctly, and we're excited about the opportunity to build in those two markets.
Well, 6 months is a very impressive feat for two pops, so well done to your team. Well done.
Yeah, they work very hard, very quick.
Absolutely. Now, with such an expansive footprint, because of course you have a global network, what services across your NTT global IP network are you seeing the most demand for? And I suppose, if you can, what's that indicative of in terms of like customer demand and behavior and that appetite?
So, in general terms for us, IP Transit is, it's our bread and butter product and our offering. There are a variety of levels of that service. And so for many years now, our biggest demand from customers is at the 100 gig E-port level, 100 gigabit Ethernet. That still continues to be the case. We have a lot of customers still connected at 10 gig Ethernet, which is not necessarily older technology, but just an older volume or size of port. And so that still exists quite a lot. But 100 gig is really where we see the bulk of our traffic these days. And probably that's been true for at least 3 or 4 years. And so the next stage of that really coming very soon. In some cases, we've got some customers, but basically 400 gig, which is the kind of the next progression of that Ethernet kind of catalog, if you will. And then sooner or later, there'll be terabit Ethernet as well. That's a little few years down the road, but 400 gig is the next thing. And the part of your second question is, it's just the demand for traffic and the utilization of services, applications, software, streaming, all the things that you can think of when you think about internet-centric businesses who we serve and on a global level. So that demand is, across all different kinds of applications. But at the end of the day, it's all about bandwidth and having that capacity available to support the bandwidth requirements that they have.
Yeah. Well, I, for one, can definitely see us reaching terabit services very, very soon with all the applications that I'm hearing about. So I'm with you there. So this one is, I suppose, a bit of a broad one. But how do you ensure the network performance? Which is obviously critical to support all of these internet-centric customers around the world, because that's a big ask.
Oh, yeah. Well, first of all, we have a fantastic team, and a lot of our team has been with us for a couple decades. So we have a lot of experience that we've certainly learned a lot of things along the way, sometimes through trial and error in certain cases, and other times through, just well thought through planning and industry best practice. So those are all important parts of it. But it really does start with kind of the design and architecture of the network, even of a particular POP. When we're at that small of a level, specifically looking at one market or one location. But the architecture and design is critical. We also have a lab that we use to test out all the software and all the hardware we deploy in the network. So we don't just buy a box and stick it out there and hope it goes okay. We go through a whole certification and kind of validation process with the different vendors we use from a hardware perspective, as well as the software, and do all of that testing in advance. But a network is not a static environment. It's kind of a dynamic environment. Things change all the time, and there's certainly things like undersea cable outages or things like that can have impact. So then it really comes down to how much resiliency you build into the network, both at a physical perspective as far as the routing gear and the physical infrastructure, as well as just the fiber and the routes that you have connecting all the different parts of the network. So all those pieces come into that experience from a customer point of view, and having that resiliency and that dependability that you need and that they require. So it's a complicated set of things, but it's all all very important parts of the process.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, for me personally, NTT is synonymous with kind of network security. That's kind of how I was first introduced to you guys. So I have to ask, how is NTT kind of reacting to the uptick in AI technologies in both the network security space and also in the hands of, let's face it, bad actors as well, right? There's a need for us to kind of keep up and stay on top of that evolution of that technology.
Yeah, I mean, so AI, generative AI particularly, is kind of the newest trick, I'll call it, that the kind of bad actors are trying to utilize.
Right.
It is still such a new technology. I would say that for us, ourselves, for other operators, and for some of those bad actors, no one's an expert at it yet by any means. It's still a learning process. So we're using it actually both in some of our operational side to help do some help along with automation, improve automation. We aren't having AI make any independent decisions, but we're using it as kind of an additional resource to allow us to make the best decision possible and kind of give it queries. As generative AI is tricky in regards to, you have to ask the right questions. You have to know what questions to ask and also to vet the answers. Not all the answers are actually correct or even real. Now, there's many examples of the ChatGPT or other services basically providing false answers.
Right.
So in either case, you can't just depend upon it entirely. And I think it's still early stages in that. Again, on both sides of that coin, kind of the network operators and those of us trying to maintain good quality of service for customers, and then some of the bad actors. So it'll take time, but like anything else, any other part of network security environment over the last 20 plus years, it's just it's kind of a cat and mouse, cops and robbers kind of situation, and we'll keep doing our thing, and I'm certain they'll keep doing their thing. So
as long as you keep doing your thing, I'm sure we'll all be safe. That's great. So shifting gears a little bit, we know that NTT is undergoing a transformation as NTT Data and NTT Limited are merging your international operations outside of Japan. So talk to me about the reasons for this merger and the benefits that you expect to see.
Yeah, the strategy for NTT Data is kind of a strategy that was really put in place and put in motion a number of years ago. And it really had to do with making sure that NTT had a truly global business structure that allowed for the entire portfolio of NTT-based services. And NTT Data, NTT Communications, NTT Limited, all of those groups had a place where that global approach to business was structured and kind of set in the right location as well as the right kind of mindset. What that kind of involved is really basically saying for our businesses in Japan, who are very significant businesses in and of themselves, really needed to be kind of separated out and not be intertwined with those other businesses that were really global businesses. So there's still lots of great interaction with the teams in Japan and for the businesses there. It's not that they're separate in that sense, but operationally and even from a strategic point of view, that needs to happen. There were several steps we had to go through, some of it because of legal entity changes, some of it through just operational integration, and so that's been going on for a number of years. NTT Limited was formed just a little over 4 years ago, and now NTT Limited essentially is now part of what's called NTT Data Inc. So that momentum and that movement that's occurred has been something that's been going on for almost 10 years now, probably from the planning stages, and we're still in that execution stage. We're getting towards the end of what those steps will be, but with the acquisitions we'll continue to do, that will always be an ongoing area for us to continue to grow and enhance the services globally across a whole variety of different services and offerings for clients and customers.
Yeah, absolutely. So benefits all round then. That's what we like to hear. Okay, so if we then take it to another slightly high level question, but I think is a really good one, which is, the evolution of the market and moving forward, what opportunities do you see in the next few years for the global telecoms industry? Now, I'm sure there's probably about 5 different answers that you could give me, but maybe if you've got one standout or one trend that you think is very particularly promising.
So going back to your question a minute ago, I think in the generative AI space, there's a lot of things that could become possible, could become interesting. I think a lot of it's still very undefined yet. So I'll set that one to the side for the moment, even though it's maybe the sexier answer. I still, at this stage, think Internet of Things as a broad category, just the different services, applications, learning capabilities. There's so many things in that broad bucket that you can point to, and some of those have progressed faster than others, and that'll continue to be the case. But How people use the internet in their day-to-day lives for both personal reasons or for business, professional reasons will continue to grow and expand and change. And like, that's the near-term opportunity in a lot of ways. Facilitating and enabling those application developers, those platform developers, those software developers to utilize those services across the global internet is certainly a huge part of our overall strategy and what we try to do, day to day. So that's what I would say is the near-term kind of standout to me.
Okay. Well, that actually feeds nicely into my final question, which is we are now kind of firmly heading into FY24 or in FY24, depending on, how you operate. Talk to me about the roadmap for the Global IP Network team. Is it very much in line with what you just mentioned about enabling those applications, or are there any other specific areas of focus?
By and large, I would say that, we'll continue to do things like look at markets or buildings to expand into from a pop point of view, like the Denver Phoenix scenario. But again, that's something we've done for many, many years and is a very consistent strategy. Continuing to also make sure that we're operating the network in the most effective way and the most resilient way for customer experience reasons is our other kind of key priority. If we do those two things well and we kind of manage the cost structures of the business well, then we'll just keep doing and keep executing on the strategy we've had for quite a long time. We're very purpose-built from all parts of our organization to focus on selling IP transit. We're one aspect of this huge NTT organization, but for myself and my team, that's what we're focused on, and we'll continue to do that.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, if it's a winning formula, why change it, right? Absolutely. All right. Well, Michael, thank you so much for joining me. And to our audience who's watching and those watching online, thank you so much for your time and attention. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.